Thank you,
Thank you,
snowboarding.
snowboarding.
Thank you,
snowboarding.
Hey friends, welcome back to Thank You Snowboarding, the podcast that is delving into UK snowboard culture, past and present. And it's made in association with the Snowboard Asylum, keeping British snowboarders with the kit they need for many, many years. So I hope you had a nice Christmas wherever you were in the world and however that presented itself. We had a very mellow one, which was delightful. Really mellow, kids on good form, plenty of Lego, you know the score. So yeah, this week's guest sat on a Zoom call with Eddie Spearing a couple of weeks ago. Out of everyone I think I wanted to get on the podcast, Eddie is definitely one of the key components, I would say, of the UK scene from its very roots to where it is now. Eddie played a huge part setting up Snowboard UK, as we talk about the magazine side of snowboarding quite a lot. A scene that supported 3-4 magazines, depending on how you look at it at one point. There was definitely some business and life to be had out of that, and Eddie, I would say, straddled the sort of publication world. He was also the backbone of the BSA. He was at every comp you went to, he was always judging, he was always organising something, always in good humour, or mostly in good humour, I would say. He was just basically everywhere, every party, everything, every event, and with humour, and the humour ran through the magazines, and I think that influenced White Lines when that started as well. We talk about that, and I just don't think we can really cover how much of an influence Eddie had on the UK scene. He really was one of the linchpins. There's only like a very small handful of people that I could say actually put their whole lives into snowboarding, and Eddie is definitely one of them. So I caught up with him via Zoom because he's now in New Zealand. I spoke to him, it was in the evening over here, and it was 8 a.m. over there on a Monday morning. And we could have talked for hours. Obviously, we had to sort of try and stay on some sort of track. And maybe we'll go for a repeat episode if and when the time allows, because there was a lot of stuff we didn't cover. But hopefully you'll find this interesting. We cover a lot of stuff about magazines, the BSA, early snowboarding days, what he thinks now about competition, and all the good stuff. So please do spare me about an hour and a half with me and Eddie Spearing. I'll see you at the end for housekeeping. Well, I mean, I think it's fair to say, out of like everyone on my list, there's a few real key, there's only a handful of people who kind of were really pivotal, and you're one of them. Do you?
Yeah.
When you look back, do you kind of see that, or do you just think, well, I was just doing it, I didn't really think about it?
Oh no, I knew that at the time, but it's funny how it worked out though. You know, it wasn't like nothing's ever planned. You know, it's all random, and you just find yourself in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Like so I tell you how I got into snowboarding.
Yeah, let's go there.
So
yeah, what did it look like? I mean, that was early, wasn't it? So it can't have been very main. It certainly wasn't sort of in the shops or in magazine. You know, there certainly wasn't any magazines or anything, was there?
No, there wasn't. I was at the British Downhill Skate Championships at Brands Hatch.
Yep.
And I was walking back up the hill, and I ended up walking up beside Dave Furneaux.
Right.
From SS20. And SS20 didn't exist at that time, but it was just about to.
Yeah.
And we were just walking up the hill, you know, talking away, never met each other before. I just finished Polytechnic. It's going to be working for GEC steam turbine generators in Rugby. as a commissioning engineer.
Wow.
And he said, "Where do you live?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to be living in Rugby." He went, "Oh, I live in Rugby." I went,
No
"Oh,
way.
yeah." And he said, "Where are you living?" I said, "I've got nowhere to live." "Oh, you can come and live with me."
No way.
So I moved in with Dave Furno.
Yeah.
That, about 2 weeks later, I went round to see him, set it all up, moved in with Dave Furno, and there, all through his garage, there's a whole load of snowboards, like Sims and some old K2 gyrators and stuff like that. And I'd never seen a snowboard. First time I'd seen a snowboard was on a trip to Germany with the Polytechnic in 1980, probably in 85 or 84. And I saw we went skiing, it was just at the end of the season. And I saw some snowboarders going down. I went, "Oh my God, why am I on skis?" I couldn't ski.
Yeah.
And we were just mucking around. And there were some snowboarders. First time I saw snowboarding. And then there I was now in Dave Furno's house, and there's some snowboards. And
how come he had all those boards? Like, what was going on there?
Well, I think he just saw it and got into it himself. He was part of a pretty hardcore a skate crew. Ian Cocking.
Yeah.
He knew.
All right. So,
well, of course, Ian Cocking. If you look, he'd been making snowboards himself. But there's this group who just got into snowboarding about 1985, 1984, just because they heard about it and seen it and made their own boards and got on with it.
Incredible.
Jeff Parr would be another one. You need to interview Jeff Parr.
Right.
And so, so with Dave at his house, he then taught me the snowboard. We went up to the Birmingham dry slope. What's it called? Ackers Trust.
Ackers, yeah.
Ackers Trust. And then there's the whole Birmingham contingent, or part of it.
Was Ackers quite open to you guys snowboarding then?
Oh, yeah. That was the centre of operations for the whole of the Midlands, dry slope at Ackers Trust. And well, we went to skate events. Some dry slope events started happening. Went along to them. I was fully involved. I was like completely hooked.
Yeah,
this is the thing to do. And I got the idea was there was already some instruction programs in place. Well, they were being built. Dave was part of that building along with Jeff Parr, Martin Drayton. You've got to get Martin on, and just a few other people who realised that instruction was important, which it was. And
was there enough? Was there enough need for instruction? Was there enough punters wanting to learn? Because it was so new.
It was so new. I mean, I don't think I ever had any lessons. It was a case of put the board on and make your own way down. I don't remember having a lesson as such, but lots of people did have lessons. And Dave and I just forgot his name. What's his name? Mark from Ackers.
Right, I don't know.
It'll come back to me. Sorry, Mark, I'll remember. They were doing quite a lot of lessons even back then.
Yeah, that's
it became
interesting.
Yeah, it became evident that there was a dry slope teaching mechanism required, and people were just doing it off their own back. And the BSA, the British Snowboard Association, it wasn't in existence at that time as it became, but there was a teaching mechanism based around the fledgling BSA. And then with Jeremy, after a dry slope competition, everyone went back to Dave Furno's house for a meeting to start the BSA, and no one wanted to be president. So in my absence, they voted me in.
I did not know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that was Jeremy's fault. Jeremy and Dave, and who was there? Cocking. Actually, I don't know who else was there, but they voted me in. So I became the president of the British Snowboard Association.
Grudgingly or happily?
Oh, I just went, oh, okay, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. They said that.
I guess there wasn't really a role to know what to do with.
There wasn't,
at that
no,
point.
no. And someone, Mark, from l'Esprit de Keep, what's his name? Yeah, Ben. He said to me, the best people to give a job to are people who are already busy.
That's right.
So,
yep.
So then I carried on. I became the president of the BSA, which carried on until I left the country in 2002. That was.
So were you working as this turbine engineer, commissioning person as well at this point?
Yeah, I was, but I realised I actually didn't like working in a very large company.
Yeah.
Like I would go to different steam turbine halls around the country. I went up to Hartlepool. I would do a 2-month stint there,
right.
And you're doing 14 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And the draw was I was going to be off to all over the world to go and work in South Africa or Canada or wherever there was a GEC steam turbine generating plant needed looking after. It was quite, it's quite a big role. Yeah. But I realised that all I was going to do was work 16 hours a day, 6 days a week in a far off distant country. Doing what? So I actually resigned from the whole graduate program and left, and took another job in High Wycombe, right, as an R&D research and development engineer in a hosiery company. And,
hosiery, as in
tights and stockings. Yeah.
I think I might just sort of gloss over that.
Yeah, we can gloss it. That was it was really, really interesting. Really interesting. And it was when I was there that I got much further involved in snowboarding because I had time. Well, I had more time. And that was when I went to the Swansea dry slope event, which was sort of one of the hinge points, I think. There was a lot happened at that event. And things went from there then.
So when you started the BSA, how aware of you were other sort of scenes happening?
Well, I think we were all aware of. We were aware of other scenes. Like there was the Birmingham scene. Yeah. There was the South Wales scene with Jeff Parr and so on. Yeah. Then there was like the Dean Stepani and his Harrogate, isn't he? Or up there. So there was an area around Midlands. We had Doug Foden and the Grand Prix crew. That was another area. Then going up to Scotland, there was Mac Snowboard Shop. Well, it was at Windsurf Shop, and that was another crew. And then on top of all of that again, there was Aviemore and Actually on Snow. So everyone was like, sort of aware of each other bit by bit. Yeah. And people have said it before. Like it used to be when you saw someone wearing Vans, they're a skater, and you would sort of know that they're a skateboarder. When you're at an airport or somewhere and you saw a snowboard bag, you go, oh my God, someone's got a snowboard bag. Yeah. And you go running across the airport, you go walking across, and they became friends for life because they were snowboarding and you were snowboarding in 1988, 1989. It was, you didn't see anyone. So yeah, you thought you were the only ones alive, but there were more. There were pockets of resistance,
That's quite a magical feeling, isn't it? I mean, that was still the case on my first season. I walked into a bar middle of November in Val d'Isere. There was a guy with an SS20 t-shirt on, and that was where I bought my board from. And it's like, right, I need to know him. Like, out of everybody there, it's like, he's going to be my new mate. Yeah. And he ended up, like through him, it was like, we ended up staying there for the season because he was one of the early people there setting up chalets and stuff. And then eventually it was like, oh yeah, we need a couple of people. And it was like brilliant. And it was because of that single-minded, he's a snowboarder. And then, you know, even then, 93, 94, you know, snowboarders sticking together, there still wasn't that many of us. So
No,
it's
there
quite
wasn't.
magical, really.
Yeah, right place, right time. It's funny how little, you know, synchronicities happen without you knowing. Like if I hadn't met Dave,
Yeah.
or walked up, if I'd have been 10 minutes earlier, 10 minutes later, 5 minutes, and not walking up the hill with Dave at the British downhill champs, well, things would have been very different.
Yeah. I mean, you probably would have found it via a different route, or maybe not as quickly or something. But I imagine if you were skating downhill, you were probably going to be drawn to it at some point.
Yeah. So that was the British Championships, but not British Championships, the British Snowboard Association. But before that had happened, you see, from going to dry slope events, before I was part of the BSA as such, at the dry slope events, there was Al and Gus from Acid Snow, and they were making snowboards in Scotland.
Yeah, now there's a story to be told there.
There is. And they were looking for an engineer. And Rob Needham, who you will also have on, he knew that I was an engineer. And he said, oh, you need to speak to Al and Gus, because they need an engineer to design their snowboard press.
Right.
So I went, oh, okay then. So I got in touch with Al and Gus, and I didn't really know who they were, and I did it by phone. And they said, yeah, come up to Aviemore. I was living in Taunton, Somerset. Right,
it couldn't have been further away if you'd tried.
Couldn't have been further away. Right. So I got on the train in basically a suit and tie, but not a suit, but I was looking smart. I had my little briefcase.
Yeah.
My engineer's briefcase. And off I went up to Aviemore. I got off the train, you know, as an engineer, you know, young engineer.
Yeah.
Trying to be pro. And Al and Gus picked me up, and we just went out and got absolutely fucking wasted. And
what year was that? When did they start making boards?
Well, that was probably also 88 or 89. 89. It had to be 89.
I mean, that's crazy that they started making boards in Scotland when, you know, like boards weren't that readily available anyway.
No, and they had it all worked out. They had, you know, the Max Planck. It was the scientist range. The Max Planck, the Boltzmann, the McWeeny, all the board names, and then all the designs based around the different, like, freestyle, carving, sort of all-terrain. They had it all lined up, all done and dusted and ready to go. So I made the press, I designed the press, had it made, went up there about 3 times. And whilst I was up there one time, Steve Kane, the editor of Skateboard magazine,
right,
he was there. He was passing through Scotland with his missus, and he stopped in to do an interview with Alan Gus there was a new supplement in Skateboard magazine. It was going to be called the Snowboard !
Of course.
So I was there. He turned up. We got chatting as well after we'd finished with Alan Gus, and he said, "Oh, you're an engineer. We need someone to be the technical editor for the new Snowboard magazine. How do you fancy being a technical editor?" I went, "Oh, yeah, I suppose I could be a technical editor of the Snowboard magazine. Why not?"
Yeah.
And that's what happened. So I then phoned up lots of distributors, got a load of snowboards. I ran a review in the first issue of Snowboard! And through working on Snowboard magazine, I then met Stig and Sang Tan and a number of other people. Like Paul Duffy was the photographer, you know, the skate photographer. He was amazing. And that company was owned by Moore and Noble Publishing. Now, we did 3 issues of Snowboard, and Moore and Noble promptly then it went into liquidation, and we never got paid. All the contributors didn't get paid. We got paid a little bit, but nothing like what we're supposed to. And then the very next day, or 3 days later, they came back into life as Noble and Moore. So they liquidated, didn't pay anyone, and then we Phoenix themselves. So Stig and I, we were really pissed off.
Yeah.
Like, everyone was really annoyed, and they just thought we would just carry on working for them. So Stig and I, we met in Bath over a beer, and decided to start Snowboard UK magazine.
Amazing.
And that would have been early 1991, and the issue came out. Was it September or October? At the end of 1991, we pulled it together in that period.
I can tell you.
There you go. Oh,
I've got it
tell
here.
me.
When's it saying? It just says 1991 on the cover.
Yeah.
Hasn't got a more specific date.
Well, I do know we can pin it down because we had to have it ready for the Llandudno dry slope competition.
Yeah. That
was the launch moment. And that's when it was. We printed, I don't know how many, 2,000, 3,000.
Really?
Got it into the distributor. When I say distributor, the magazine distributors, because that was hard then. Even if you're launching a new magazine,
yeah,
you have to make it work. You have to get a distribution deal with one of the magazine distribution companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did that, but at the same time, we would also physically wrap up the magazines, like in blocks of however many, 10 or 20.
Yeah. And
then we used to post them out because it was super expensive. When we realized that we could just drive around the country, for 2 tanks of fuel, 3 tanks of fuel, and hand deliver them to the shops.
Brilliant.
And in doing that, we also then spoke to all the owners, found out what was going on, get a little bit of information for the news section in the mag.
Yeah.
And we did, between Stig and I, we like hand built the magazine. Stig was the designer after the second year. We used a design agency in Worcester for the first season of 5 mags, sorry. And that was, oh God, I'm just become terrible with names. It's, Andy Williamson, of course.
Andrew Williamson, Funky Pajamas in brackets, I've got here.
Correct. Well done. So Andy Williamson and his business partner, and they were like a young design company in Worcester. They had some real flash offices. It was great. They drove around in Porsches. Well, we loved them, and they would do that. They were great. They would do all the design.
Yeah.
Back then, like putting a magazine together, it's not like now where it's all on screen.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah. No, back then you designed it on a rubbish Mac, saved all the files to either floppy disks or to those 3.5 megabyte large floppy disks.
Yeah.
Took this stack of disks round to your designer, because you separately have all the photographs scanned by a scanning company.
Yeah.
On a disc, on a drum scanner. All the text would be written on. We wrote all the text on 2 computers, one of which was an old IBM. It was massive. Honestly, it was massive, and it was our accounts computer. And we had a dot matrix printer. So we wrote all the articles. Stig photographed. I wrote. He wrote. We would then take this material to Tableau Design, as they were called. They would put it together. They would output all the finished InDesign files. We would then physically pick those up on discs, take them to the repro house.
Yeah.
They would then convert all those InDesign files to film, and then film was like the 4 colours of films: cyan, CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black.
Yep.
They would then turn it into film, laid out in blocks of 8 or 16. They would finish that. We would physically drive to the repro house, pick up the film, drive it to the printer. This is all in the Midlands. Drop the film off, say goodbye, come back a week later, and there's our magazines. And then we would physically pick up the magazines and drive them around the country. And that's what we did.
There's so many things to get into there. So one of the things is, I think that there's something in that driving the magazines around and visiting people that helped create a community of people. Like I believe the UK scene is sort of slightly different to everywhere else, and I think it's doing things like that. You know, you knew the people because you were seeing them and meeting them and talking to them, that helped create this cohesive scene. Do you think there's something in that?
Yeah, it definitely part of it. And because like it's almost like trying to find the shops was hard to start with. But then when you delivered the magazines, it sort of solidified that we were in the right shop, we're talking to the right people, maybe skate shops, surf shops, all different shops, but they all had the same outlook on that snowboarding was good. And off the back of that, of course, we were selling advertising. So I did the advertising sales.
Yeah.
So I was also talking to them about adverts. So yeah, that's absolutely the truth of it. And I also think we were probably, like Stig and I, we were probably 2 years too soon. You know, it was, we both had jobs at the same time. It wasn't our full-time role.
No.
I was driving up and down. I'm still now a self-employed design engineer in Taunton.
Right.
Stig had another job. I've forgotten what it was. We used his parents' carpet factory, an old office, as our office, and bit by bit, it became more and more full-time, to the point that we could fold in our jobs and do it full-time, but we never really earned full-time money. We were doing it for the love of it, not for...
Yeah, well, I mean, that's another thread, isn't it? It's like the DIY ethos that seems to always run throughout the UK scene. You know, like Chaos the movie was made with, you know, I imagine practically no budget.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, and people doing seasons with nothing and cramming loads of people on the floor, you know, just to be out there and doing it. And I think, you know, and then to sort of, you know, onto sort of Tim and Gen starting to make movies. And again, like, you know, no budget, but it's like, well, if we don't do it, no one else is going to do it. And I think that feels to be, you know, maybe that's a thing in snowboarding generally, but it certainly feels like that's the case in UK snowboarding. It's like, right, we need to just create this thing ourselves because no one else is going to do it for us.
Exactly that, and that was the same with the BSA. It's like it's an organisation for snowboarders by snowboarders. That was the whole idea behind it. We can't let someone else organise and run our organisation. We created the events ourselves. We did everything ourselves, and that is.
But exactly I think in turn that gives like everyone involved greater ownership of the thing. So it reinforces that community. You know, like everyone goes to the events whether you're riding or not, just because it's something that's on where snowboarding's happening. So you have to go. There's like no question. So you see everybody, like everybody's at the comps because that's where the snowboarders are, and they're your people.
I remember then going on the first time I went to snow. It was from 2 years after I actually started dry snow snowboarding. Going up to Scotland was one thing, but I didn't go to. I went to Europe before I went to Scotland on a just ski camp with Dave Fenner, Rob Needham, and
I think I've seen the advert for that somewhere.
Yeah.
You have to like phone someone up to pay a deposit. It's just like it's just a different world, isn't it? It's so crazy.
Yeah, it was Rob's friend Jan Marco. She was the organizer,
That's right.
And
That name rings a bell.
I mean, I almost forgotten which bit became first, because then we had the BSA trips, which were run then by Tour Alp, which became, little events in their own right, and they were a big deal. It's easy to, everything becomes blurred into one. You've got to slow down and stop and think, what came first, what came next, how did one thing lead into another? Like the BSA trips, well, they were run through the magazine, but they were run by the BSA. They weren't about the magazine. It was just a case of getting people together who would go to team more often than not.
But what was great about it? Well, from my point of view, so I saw the first issue of Snowboard UK in Charing Cross Station 88 Smiths.
Amazing.
And I think I'd already, I must have been aware of it or into it somehow, but I can't imagine I was doing it because there was just like nowhere for that to happen. But then I remember picking up the magazine and just thinking, holy shit, this is a thing. Like, I'm not imagining this. This is an actual thing. And then with the sort of the BSA trips and things, you'd see the pictures in the magazine. So it was like, well, it was small enough that if you need, like, it showed you where to go. It showed you like, right, there's competitions, just go to them and everybody's there. And trips, you can go on them. Like, it's not an exclusive club. You can just go along and be part of it. It was amazing.
And I think we really tried hard to make it really open and inclusive in that way, that it wasn't like we're the special people going snowboarding. We tried to make it that everyone should come along and grow it like that. At least I hope. Well, that's what I felt we tried to do. And I think we did do that. There wasn't any... Huh?
I think so. Or from my point of view, from someone who was outside it looking in, I felt very welcomed into it.
And then from the magazine's point of view, we also made a point of it not being just images and stories of stuff that wasn't relevant of Americans or Euros. We tried to make it as UK focused as we possibly could. And that meant covering dry slopes and going to Scotland and covering the UK people that were important.
Yeah.
Not making it not just another snowboarder or a trans world. We wanted to do the UK snowboard scene.
Yeah, and so, I think that really shone through. Well, I think that's a big part of it, and also like the humour of it. It had an Englishness about it. Like, I remember reading a contest report, and you'd rename Terry A. Harkinson Terry Heineken. And it's just like, I love the fact it's like, right, we're going to do it our way. Do you know what I mean? And there was humour all the way through it, rather than, Transworld was like fucking snowboarding. Do you know what I mean? Whereas England had that sort of, it's definitely our take on it.
Stig is very clever. He's very funny, and he's very funny with words. I think I'm pretty sure I think Stig came up with Terry Heineken.
Has anyone ever called Terry A? Just got up to it. Hey, you're that Terry Heineken guy.
I don't know if he has or not. But I had my humour where I write. Stig's had his humour. And between us, we wrote the whole magazine.
Yeah.
We would write third on the magazine you've got there.
Yeah.
What we had good fun. Every issue is on the bit you were just looking at. What's it called? Not the credits. Who built the magazine?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the very, very bottom paragraph, in the small print,
go on.
We always write some shit in there. We'd always write something funny. So no one ever reads that bit, but we'd always write something in. There might be something weird or some odd angle on our terms and conditions or something. So there's always something all the way through. And every single bit had to be written, We wrote the whole thing. And well, it was a labour of love. And as the magazine progressed, we would get to a point where you can try and make it just a little bit better. Let's change this design. Or that wording isn't quite right. But you had a deadline to hit, because if you didn't get a magazine out the door to the repro house for them to make the film, to get it to the printer, you're going to be late. And often I would just shout, "That's it. That's all it's going to get." And then whatever we had done, that would be it.
Yeah.
And we'd walk out the door with it. But we would often do all-nighters. We'd do 40 hours straight getting the magazine finished.
Yeah.
We did it often.
Just incredible. So just one more thing on the early days of Snowboard UK. Obviously, I sent you that picture that will go on our Instagram at some point of Adrian in the outfit that he was wearing on the cover shot.
I can't believe that. Yeah.
I know. And the fact that he lives 15 minutes from me as well. And, he just called me up and was like, "I've got all this stuff. I've got that outfit." And it's like, oh my God, got to do something with that. But,
I got a question on that. Like that number that's on it, 42.
Yeah.
Did he put that on, or was that his actual number during the race?
It looks to me like that was his actual number. It doesn't look like it's been put on afterwards.
Because you can't see that in the image on this cover.
No, you can't. 'Cause his legs are up.
Yeah. So 42. You see the meaning of life and everything. And so there it was, the beginning of it all, and he has the number 42 on his chest. And I didn't know that until you sent that picture through the other day.
Serendipity. So just for listeners, we're talking about the cover of Snowboard UK issue 1 with a guy called Adrian Corrigal, who, interesting enough, was it difficult choosing that first cover to try and sort of show what snowboarding is? Because just the fact he's not grabbing it sort of sticks out in my mind.
Yes, we had so much shit about that, and you keep talking about it. And did you see I wrote something on Instagram about that? Did you see that?
No, I don't think I did see that.
What's wrong with you?
Let me have a look.
So
all right.
I actually explained on Instagram why we picked that shot, and the reason why we ended up with that shot is Sang took the shot. He took a lot of photos that day. We had another shot of Cy Smith doing it in Japan, but it was a little bit soft. It wasn't. The background wasn't clear. There were other things wrong with that shot, even though he was grabbing, that weren't right either. And we went over and over on this photograph what to pick, but it's what's going on in the background. That particular day was the first British Championships, so that's one reason. The day before, it was complete whiteout, and it was a slalom event, and you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. The very next day, we had another slalom comp, and then we went up in the afternoon to run this half pipe comp, which itself was a ditch pulled together by Bob Kinnear at Aviemore, who was in charge of Aviemore Resort at the time. So we had the first half pipe, the first British champs, all those little dots in the background, they're all moving up to walk up the Cairngorm head wall to drop in on the beautiful powder that was there.
On the left, yeah.
I remember Jeremy tumbling down, get to the bottom, and it was just ragdolling down. That was pretty funny. But you see, I'm standing on that image. I've got a black bin bag in my hand, and I'm just going around picking up rubbish. And I'm looking across going, I want to go up there. I want to go with them.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. I had to finish the comp because I had to get that done, to get down to the building in Aviemore to do the prize giving. It was so busy. So that particular shot epitomized, as a UK rider, you had the scenery of Cairngorm, you had the pipe, you had this beautiful light, it was late in the day, and even though it wasn't a grab, which people ribbed us about forever, it was still the best shot that we had, epitomizing snowboarding in the UK at that point.
Yeah.
And that was basically it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, I'm not hating on it at all, because I think it is iconic. Do you know what I mean? And I just wanted to know a bit more of the story behind it, because it's like, well, I think there's probably more to that story than meets the eye. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I also remember seeing it in W.H. Smith's Charing Cross Station in London and just being so pleased that this was a thing. It wasn't just, I wasn't alone in this. There was other people enough to make a magazine, and that literally changed my life. So
yeah,
I guess thanks for that.
Well, it was a big decision for Stig and I's part. Once we decided we were going to do it, we then did it.
Yeah.
And it was actually hard to do, because it wasn't the one that we did. It was the 5 we did the whole season.
Yeah.
We had to plan all of them. And I do believe in that one, there's a board test, isn't there? And
that board test from Hintertux where everyone's like sleeping outside by the look of things.
Yeah, that's right. That's where Rob Morrow was there. Because
right.
Ian Felton, another person you have to get on, was from Chaos. He was the distributor for Morrow, so he got Rob Morrow to come along. And now the naughty thing is, I was really quite naughty with the first issue of the magazine. We wanted a board review, and the Daily Mail ski magazine had employed me to do a board test for them.
Right.
So we went along on, well, they paid for a lot of that board test, but because our magazine came out first, we took all the same information, changed it around a little bit, and designed it in our way and put it into our own magazine, which they didn't know we were making. So we got Daily Mail Ski Magazine to basically pay for and pull that board test together.
Sweet.
Well, not quite. And then we took the information and put it in our own magazine over 2 issues.
Yeah.
And
amazing. And also fuck the Daily Mail, right? Because
correct.
You can take as much of their money as you want. They've got piles of it.
Correct. And it was great. The day that Snowboard UK magazine was bigger page-wise than the Daily Mail Ski. That was a few years down the road, but we ended up running 184-page issues.
Yeah.
7 issues a year, and we were then officially, no, you couldn't, there was no deliberation. We were thicker and bigger than the Daily Mail Ski magazine.
Amen to that.
So that was cool.
Yeah, that is cool. How was it then when you saw sort of snowboarding? Obviously you'd sort of devoted a lot of time into it, and then you saw it sort of exploding in the late 90s. How did that make you feel with doing the magazine and everything? What changed? Did anything change for you?
Oh no, it was great. I mean, we had employees. We could afford to do things. I've been to 72 different resorts around the world, all paid for by different tourism boards.
Sweet.
Seen it just grow and expand. It's been great. We've been completely part of that. Well, I've enjoyed it.
Where's snowboarding taken you, or what? Give me an idea of something that happened, either a place that you've been or an incident that's happened where you've just thought, sort of that's down to snowboarding, where you're just like, fucking hell, like how mad is this?
I mean, there's so many, Chris. Going to ISPO, for instance.
Right. For the listener, ISPO is a big trade show in Munich, isn't it? Where basically all the snow sports manufacturers and everything get together to sort of sell to shops.
That's right. So going to ISPO every year, because you see all the kit for next year. So you're there for snowboarding, and it's all paid for on the magazine. And it's just a party scene. It was just like you're right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And on the way to ISPO, you stop off in Innsbruck or after to go snowboarding and more parties.
Yeah.
That's where the tequila, the tequila 1000. I don't even know how we're going to get to that point. But I think it was. I had a wonderful time. I mean, I traveled all over the world, met people who are lifelong friends, did things you'd never do, go to countries to go snowboarding and climb mountains as well off the back of snowboarding. I don't know how many things I could give you that were moments I've stopped and pinched myself. There's so many of them. You know, I've never made it to South America. I've never made Alaska, as other people have, as you've talked to. But
yeah,
I've been everywhere else. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about it for me, kind of, you know, as you say, like there's so many things that it's given. You know, it's given you, it's given me, it's given lots of people listening. I remember for me, I was always like, I want to own a house in the Alps by the time I'm 30. That seemed to be an important thing, and we started the chalet, and we were doing that. And then I remember in my 30th year, we sort of bought the house that we ran the chalet out of, and I remember me and my wife sat on the balcony, like opening a bottle of champagne and looking up at Les Arcs, Le Plan. You know, like it had a crazy, you know, they had the border to Italy up on the Petit Saint Bernard Pass, Les Arcs, Le Plan, you know, surrounded by mountains, and just popping this champagne and just thinking, you know, how have I gone from, you know, dry slope in Bromley in southeast London to kind of achieving what I set out to do? And I think that's one of my favourite memories.
It is amazing when you reflect back on how you got to that place, but you didn't do it. You know, didn't happen on its own, did it, Chris? You had to actually work at it and do it.
Oh yeah, 100%. You know, I've slept on rat-infested cellars and shit like that to go snowboarding to make it work. You know, but
it's just a decision on your part, isn't it? You decide to do it, but the excuse to get you there just happened to be snowboarding, and maybe you would never have even gone to France into the mountains if it wasn't for snowboarding, which is probably the truth of it.
No, but there definitely seems to be something about the experience in mountains that draws you in, or it felt like the place I needed to be. When I went there, I went skiing with the school, and it just sort of opened up. We went through the clouds and it opened up, and straight away, within seconds, I was like, this is for me.
Yeah.
Have you ever had moments like that where you just feel like you're 100% in the right place?
No. I don't know.
Oh man, come on! I'm trying to tee you up here. Some amazing story, and you give me no.
No, but I can't. There's so many little stories.
Yeah.
But I can't think of one particular moment that makes me go, "Oh, wow!" Because honestly, I've got so many. I've got so many. It's like, I mean, I lived a jet set life for 10 years. Literally, we went everywhere, to all the resorts. We met all the people. We were at all the parties. We were everywhere we needed to be, and it does blur into almost normalness. You know, it's afterwards that you reflect back and, oh yeah, that was a really good time. But I can't give you a single time. No.
Was it sat on Hemel Dry Slope? I remember I sat with you at Hemel Dry Slope, you know, one of the Hemel Dry Slopes, and they were messy weekends as well.
They were.
And just don't know, watching snowboarding. I mean, you were in the trenches. That's the thing. You say you live this jet set life. You've been in, you know, you've done the time judging every dry slope comp and every event you were there. Do you know what I mean? It's such an incredible amount of work you put into snow.
Yeah, it did. I did put a hell of a lot of my whole life got sucked into it. I mean, I can go the other way. I can say I do have a particular moment where we're on the snowboard test. One year, I think it was Intertuts, and you know we used to party until very, very late. But the next day, you know, you had to be up on the lift, up the hill with testing snowboards. There's work to be done. But after about 4 days of not going to bed till 5 and getting up again at 8, right? It's not, you know, without a word of a lie. That's what we did.
I know. I lived it. It's fine.
Yeah, and I ended up, we got all the snowboards. We had to take them up and down every day, or someone would arrive with some new snowboards, and I'd take them up in the gondola. I ended up in the gondola on my own, and I was sat there. There was the first stage. I was in the second stage, and I was really, really hungover, so tired. And I remember thinking to myself, "What am I doing? I mean, I can't do this. This is too hard." And I actually had a little mini breakdown, even
Oh no.
a little tear, and I went, "I can't do this. I can't do this. What am I doing it for? It's too hard. It's just too hard. Every day I'm coming up here. Who am I? Am I earning enough money? What's the point of this?"
Yeah.
And well, I had my little moment, but I remember it quite distinctly.
Yeah.
I got out at the top and then carried on. But it's very hard for me to say to you, I've had a single defining shit. Yeah, this is look what I'm doing, because there have been so many. Because there's so many things. I mean, we could talk for an hour on each year.
Yeah.
There's so many things I could talk about, like dry slope instruction. We set that up from scratch through the dry slope instructors, all the individual. But for years and years, my signature's at the bottom of every single certificate of dry slope instruction, and then the snow instruction.
Yeah.
We made a snow instructors course ourselves. When I say we, I'm not talking about the BSA. I didn't do it because I can't instruct the shit. I can't be bothered instructing anyone. I would follow the Scottish principle of follow gravity, which is coined by Steve Crampton and Simon Smith. You want to learn the snowboard? Follow gravity. All right? But I saw that we had to have an instruction mechanism, because the instruction brought people in, and that grew the base. And if you grow the base, then everyone will enjoy themselves a lot more in their lives, and we can have more fun at parties, and we can sell more magazines, and the competitions will be bigger. It's all this self-evolving thing, round and round and round. I know that Becky said that, I was surprised at this. She thought that, she might think this is true, but it's not true, that they created their very own snow qualification.
I think what she was saying was that Basie employed her and Neil to kind of come up with something for them. Do you know what I mean?
Well, they might have done, but actually we had a written signed contract with Bob Kinneard of Basie, the British Association of Ski Instructors.
Yeah.
And off the back of the amalgamation of the BSA snow course with Basie changed their name. That was part of the agreement, to the British Association of Snow Sport Instructors.
Wow. Now,
we were supposed to get a license fee, which we did for 2 years from Basie for that. Well, I say we again, the BSA.
Yeah.
But again, that never happened after about 2 years. Another person you should get on is John O'Grady. He was the chairman of the association for many, many years. I was the president. I was the figurehead, the flag waver. I was out there talking to all the people, kissing babies, shaking hands, going snowboarding with everyone.
How many fucking babies did you?
Well, you know what I mean. I'm out there doing it. I'm the front, as it were. We almost ran the association, so we had to make decisions and get things done and moving forward. So between three of us, we would make all the decisions on the spot and get them done.
Yeah, sure.
And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but that's what we felt we had to do. And I felt that owning a magazine and being the president of the association was a very tricky situation, because I had to walk a very thin line along a knife edge that I couldn't be biased one way or another. I always tried to make it fair for everyone in my role as chairman of president of the BSA.
So how long were you at Snowboard UK for? Like, when I mean, obviously another 2 magazines started, or what happened? Did Snowboard UK get sold, and then did you start Document?
Yeah. So I'll have to go back a little bit. So the publisher of Windsurf magazine in about 1995 or 96, he bought RAD, Read and Destroy, the the skateboard.
Skate magazine, yeah.
He bought that magazine, and he thought he would be getting the staff along with it. But Tim Lane Boyce, who was the editor but not the owner, I've subsequently found out he also made he tried to buy the magazine as well, but his bid wasn't good enough. So the publisher of Windsurf magazine bought RAD, but didn't have any staff. Tim Lane Boyce and Mark Kasparovich met, got on after about 20 minutes. There was no deal. TLB walked out. So Kasparovich was left with the magazine, but no one to run it.
Right.
So he then phoned up Stig and I, and he offered us to move to Oxford to work in a really plush barn, work in his barn, produce RAD, and produce Snowboard UK.
Right.
So we all thought, oh my God, it's been skaters. We've been skaters all our life. I've been skating my whole life. Oh my God, I'm going to be the editor of RAD magazine. Of course I'm going to do that.
Yeah, of course.
So Stig was actually the editor and I was the advertising manager editor. Now, what eventuated, we tried our very, very best to make that magazine to continue the history of what it had been. But the skate community is a very close-knit community. Way close. And it's London focused, and it's basically, it's a London, especially back then. If you weren't in London, you weren't a recognized skateboarder almost, And when TLB got the boot, even though he didn't own the magazine, but he got the boot, everyone thought it basically was his magazine. Everyone closed ranks. We couldn't get good imagery from overseas. We couldn't get advertising because no, we're not going to advertise in this magazine because we don't believe that the new owner and you guys running it are going to be able to portray skateboarding as it needs to be portrayed. And I think there was a lot of truth in that. But we really tried our best because we did have a background in skating, but we weren't fully within the scene enough to be able to portray it as it maybe ought to have been done. So over a number of months, the magazine went downhill. It got thinner. We were back then, when you did a sequence, you videoed it and did screen grabs. So, but the sort of screen grabs were about, a postage stamp size. So anyway, we did what we could do, but we realized ourselves that we couldn't do this. And at the same time, because advertising got scarcer and scarcer, the deadline and publication date of RAD went back further and further. And it got to the point where we were then trying to make Snowboard UK magazine and RAD magazine in the same 2-week period. We were doing 2 weeks RAD, 2 weeks Snowboard UK. And we couldn't do it. We physically couldn't do it. So we told Kasparovich that we're going to have to stop. We have to concentrate on our own magazine. But we have a solution for you. We've got there's Andy and Chris who ran a magazine in Nottingham out of from Nottingham, Non-Stop, wasn't it? Called System Skate Magazine.
Right.
They were already producing this magazine, and well, there might be some different stories on this bit, but we introduced Mark to the System boys, and because we couldn't do it, but we were trying to find a solution at the same time. Mark said, yeah, so you're it, employed them. So they really knew what they were doing. And they then took on RAD and pulled it back almost instantly within like 2 issues.
Right.
Back to what it had been before, because they had the full support of the American industry and the UK industry. So it worked well for them. Yeah. But then they realized that Kasparovich was really hard work to work for. He was super hard work, and they couldn't get on with him. And it was like working for someone that it was just hard work to do.
Sure.
So one day, we found out that Kasparovich, we were still in the offices together. Stig and I found out that Kasparovich was now, because he's looking over our shoulder. There's RAD magazine's advertising is going down and down and down. Snowboard UK's advertising figures are going up and up and up. We're getting big. And Kasparovich went, oh, I fancy a bit of snowboarding. I fancy a bit of that pie. So he launched Snowboard World.
Oh, of course. I'd forgotten about Snowboard World.
He launched Snowboard World. And behind our backs, he launched Snowboard World. Remember, the moment we found out he was going to do a snowboard magazine, we literally, I wasn't there, Stig packed up our office into the back of his Mercedes estate, the trusty, fabled estate, put everything into the back of the estate car and pissed off back up to Kidderminster. And we left that night. We just literally up and left. When I say we, the magazine did, but Stig did the moving.
Yeah.
And then shortly after, Chod then was the editor for Snowboard World.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, it was Chod, and then Jim Pescott. He was the advertising manager for the Windsurf magazine, which was a very good and very big windsurf magazine. And they had RAD and Snowboard World. So now Arkwind Publishing had the biggest surf magazine, windsurf magazine, sorry, in the UK. They now had the fabled skateboard magazine of the UK, run by some real good editors, and they just launched a snowboard magazine.
Right.
So things looking pretty rosy, right? And we're pissed off. We're back up in Kidderminster. But it became evident very quickly that no one could work for the publisher of Arkwind. So overnight, there was a coup, and they left. All of them left. Jim Pescott had been working with Arkwind for years and years. It's a really good advertising buyer.
Yeah.
They all got on really well. They up and left, said F you to Kasparovich, and they left and set up White Lines and Sidewalk Surfer.
Yeah.
So that's where those two magazines came from.
Right,
those magazines came from there because Snowboard UK put the spark in the idea of Kasparovich so he could start a magazine.
Yeah.
So you could say that we were also a large contributory factor in every single magazine in the UK ever taken existence.
How did it feel when some other magazines pop up? Like, do you think, oh shit, like we've got competition now, or was it all fair game?
Like it was like, oh, how dare they? How dare they? What are they doing? Are we doing something wrong? Why would somebody want to do something different to us or better than us? And it was like there was a lot of pride at stake. Oh no, that's not as good as ours. Ours is much better than theirs. But White Lines was really good,
Yeah.
and they had a different way of doing things, different way of looking at things.
But what I would say is that they still had the same they still had the humour.
Yeah, they did.
And that was one of the glorious things about the whole thing.
Yeah, it did, yeah. And I think between them, when White Lines and Snowboard UK, there was two magazines on the scene.
So when did you finish at Snowboard UK?
So then I bought Stig out of the magazine. So
is that because he'd done his time?
Oh, pretty much. But I wanted to move in a different direction, and I was getting frustrated. I wanted to do stuff myself, and I wanted to do another magazine, and I wanted to do different things. And Stig didn't really want to do it like that. So, well, I ended up trying to buy him out, but the agreement didn't happen in the end because Air Publications, which is the name of the publishing company, it went bust. Right. And I moved into an offices in Worcester. We had Snowboard UK, we had the Snowboard Bible, which is almost a standalone magazine. Mm. We were running, we were co-publishing Dig BMX magazine.
Yeah.
We actually own 50% of that, with Will Smythe. We had a skateboard magazine, which I've completely forgotten the name of it. Oh my God. We dabbled in a cross sports magazine with Phil Young called Ergo Sun.
Right.
We published the World Snowboard Guide for Tony Brown.
I contributed to that, I think.
There you go. We did all that. We were doing that. And then I wanted to start a downhill bike magazine. Oh, that's right. And I started the skate magazine after Stig had left. And at the same time, we had like, I suppose, a dodgy accountant who wasn't actually an accountant. And it's a long story, but one day he turned up in our Air Publications offices with, he opened his briefcase to show us his Masonic regalia, which he used like to carry around.
Right.
And sitting on top of his Masonic regalia was a Glock, as in handgun.
Shit.
And I said,
Didn't know the Masons were tasty with firearms.
well, I said, Keith, two questions. One, why do you have a Glock in your briefcase? And two, what the hell, didn't use that word, is it doing in my office?
Yeah.
You're fired. Go. And there's already some understand that the accounts reflected what I wanted to see rather than what was actually going on.
Right.
Anyway, this is all going on. Then Stig and I split. I moved into a separate office in Worcester Town. Vicky, we'd had a little kid with Vicky. And the accounts, I launched 2 new magazines, Grip Downhill Bike Magazine, and I headhunted the editor of Dirt to come and work for me.
Yeah.
So he was there. Dave Garland came to work as the technical editor. We had Percy running the Skateboard magazine, which I can't remember the name of. I can't believe it. We now had a staff of 14 people.
Wow.
We had like basically 4/5 magazines, 23 contributors, and it was a proper thing going on.
Yeah, that's a juggernaut.
And yeah, and in Worcester it was fantastic. We had a BMX scene, we had a skateboard scene, we had a snowboard scene, we had a downhill bike magazine. All these people would all come to the magazine, come to the offices, and we did all these different like types of people. They're all the same, but they're different. Yeah. And one day the accounts, something was wrong, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And the difficult thing was in a snowboard magazine, the year, 1 year is 12 months, but the advertising year, from the time the final revenues come in to when you actually ask for it, could be 18 months. So we had this blur of some income was from the year before compared to the year we were in.
Yeah. And
that was on an ongoing cycle, this 18-month, 20-month cycle sometimes. So we never quite sure what the money situation was. And I got rid of this accountant with the Glock. And
did you find out why he had a Glock in his suitcase?
No, I did say, I've just got a few people after me at the moment. That's what he said. So,
fucking amazing.
And I can see there's all these stories that you're talking about. I mean, they go on and on. I employed Panel Kerr Foster, a big, they're a big accountant in Worcester, well, all over the country. I suppose they're still going. One of the big 6 type accountants. After 6 to 8 months, we were into the new magazines. Phone call from Panel Kerr Foster, Eddie, can you come and see us? We've finally got to the bottom of everything. I went, oh, great. So I went in there, and they sat me down, and they said, you're in liquidation. We finally realised where you're at. and you're £250,000 in the red.
Way.
Yeah. So things just didn't work out. I mean, we tried going to all, the printers were suffering, the repro people were suffering, but we had to close the doors.
Yeah.
And the thing that upset me most of all was we lost all the people. We lost the scene of what we were doing in Worcester. It was a real focal point, and all that energy just dissipated away. People had to go and earn a living,
Yeah.
We had to shut everything down. People didn't get paid. The employees, it's like Grandy, Simon, Wendy, Wendy Lumby, Viv Jenkins, Simon the designer, Mark Rothwell. Half of them came and lived with us. Ian Sampson. Sorry, there's so many. But 4 or 5 of them came and lived with us in our house in Worcester.
Right.
For a few months. We were trying to get the thing going again. And I came up with a plan over 10 years to revitalise, to pay back all the debts.
Yeah.
But the accountant said, Eddie, you can't do it. You can't do what you're trying to do. You're trying to do the right thing, but you can't do it.
Yeah.
You just have to close up and go bankrupt. And that's what we had to do. Well, that was the end of Air Publications. And as that was all happening, I even had meatheads coming into the offices on Trinity Street in Worcester, and they were going to beat me up.
Yeah.
They were going to beat me up to pay up.
Yeah.
One of the larger companies, but they were owed about £20,000. It was a lot of money, but anyway, we got them out of the office and then phoned the police and chased them around town in cars trying to look for them. Anyway, another story. And then Snowboard UK was bought by Free. I should remember this.
They were based down in Bournemouth, weren't they?
Yeah, they were Bournemouth way. Yeah, so I would then go down there. Ian and I were the editors, and before, where we all had our own desk and lots of space. Ian and I were sharing a desk, probably the same size as one you're sitting at now. He was at one end, I was at the other, and we were trying to pull together 7 issues of Snowboard UK with no resources, nothing. And that kept coming to a head. We would be late on deadlines because we just couldn't pull it together because we didn't have the resources. A guy also called Mark, he kept pulling me up saying, hey, if you keep missing the deadlines, you'll be fired. So I was in London at a shop, the Boardwise shop, with Phil, the owner, doing some advertising sales with him.
Yeah.
And got a phone call from Vicky, my wife at the time. She'd been called into hospital because she had an ectopic pregnancy, and which is, the egg gets stuck in the fallopian tubes, and it was twins apparently, and so she'd been rushed into the hospital. So I had to rush back up to Worcester. We were still living there, to deal with all that, obviously, and that happened on deadline. How dare it happen on deadline? So we missed deadline again, and because of that, he fired me.
What an absolute prick!
Yeah, he was a prick. So I took him to court, and I won. I got a little bit of compensation. Didn't really matter. Just wanted to win.
Yeah. And
out of that, when we found out that I got fired, sort of a similar situation to the earlier RAD episode occurred, where everyone just pulled their advertising, didn't want to work with Snowboard UK, because I then got in touch with, we were really good friends with Fourline and the Kiwis from Fourline Ski Magazine.
Yeah. And
I got in touch with them, and we decided over a phone call and on the spot to create Document Snowboard Magazine.
Yeah.
So we created Document Snowboard Magazine. I went to ISPO, that happened just before ISPO, walked around ISPO, walked out of there with like 60 pages of advertising.
Wow.
All booked at ISPO. and we launched Document Snowboard.
No way.
That's with Jason Horton, Natalie Meyer, and Andy and everyone else from Four Line. So we had a new organisation to create this magazine, and then off the back of that, there was Document, and Ian. Of course, Ian was involved in that as well. Ian Sansom.
Yeah.
Document Snowboard, and then shortly after we launched Document Skateboard magazine.
Yeah, that's right. Percy was doing that, wasn't he?
That with Percy, yeah. Well, that's sort of, and then I carried that on that was 2000, and by 2002, I'd already moved to New Zealand. We thought we could do. I could continue doing my work from New Zealand. I flew back 5 times the first year.
Wow.
4 times the next year. So I moved over here in 2002. But that whole saying, out of sight, out of mind, because I wasn't there on the spot.
Yeah.
I just slowly got pushed out, just sidelined because I wasn't there. And I came to a point where I just basically stopped.
So where are you now then? Like, you're obviously in New Zealand. What fills your days?
When I got to New Zealand, I actually then, the very first year, I was responsible for pulling together the ISF World Junior Snowboard Championships for that year.
Okay.
Yeah, so I pulled all that together and ran that. That was the year that the ISF collapsed because Fizz basically went in and fucked them over.
It's funny, I was listening to, I don't know if you listened to the Bombhole, the American snowboarding podcast. It's good. They had Donna Burton Carpenter, if that's, I don't know if she has the Burton bit in her name, but they had her on. And she's still pretty angry about sort of FIS and the ISF.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, I thought maybe everyone was over that because, sort of FIS are just running things now. But is there still sort of like lingering, like for you, is there, the sort of skiers taking control of snowboarding? Is that still a wound?
It annoys me greatly, but I am not a competitive snowboarder. I am an idealistic type thought process that it needs to be run by snowboarders for snowboarders, and a ski company, skiers coming in is just going to ruin what snowboarding was. And I still feel the same as that now. I don't think snowboarding should be in the Olympics. It never should have been. The Olympics need snowboarding more than snowboarding needs the Olympics. All those, all those things you hear, I still think it's true. It's immaterial now. It's done and dusted, and there's a whole new level of snowboarder. They don't care. They just want to they just want to go snowboard and do the best they can do.
Yeah. But
the fact is, it could have happened within a snowboarder-controlled environment, and they would still be doing the best that they could do.
Yeah.
But it just didn't happen. The ISF went bust, trying to do too much too young. It was a 10-year-old organisation, and it needed to be a 30, 40-year-old organisation. So, but I'm not angry about it. I mean, it still annoys me a little bit. I mean, what is snowboarding become at the Olympics? Is it just the gymnast thing? What is it?
On that then. So when you're watching, I think it's fair to say that most of the time that you see, certainly in this country, if you see snowboarding now, it's some sort of competition, and that's the basis of it. You don't see much looking at the lifestyle element of it, which is probably the thing that is the most fun about it. Like competition has now got to such a high standard that I wonder, do kids watching it now look at it and think that's a sport I want to do, or whether it's just like freestyle skiing where they do 4 flips and whatever, and it's a trampoline, almost like a trampoline basically. I wonder if it's still inspiring. So I wonder how that looks to you.
I like watching massive big air, just a full-on massive floater method, right? I'd rather watch that first hit of a pipe than a super spinny whatever.
Right.
where I live here in Wanaka, this is the centre of snow sports in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Snow Sports New Zealand is here. I ran the New Zealand Snowboard Association for 6 months as well. And I was involved with Snow Sports New Zealand for a long time as the team convener. So I know how it all works. And the work that goes on here, it pumps out some really good athletes, because they're athletes now. They're not riders, they're athletes. And it pushes them out into what is accepted as the norm. I mean, I don't know. It's a very difficult question to go along, because we have to talk about money for medals. The only way governments will fund sport is if they get medals. Medals at where? Medals at the Olympics.
Yeah.
Government and then national sporting bodies, to get their funding, they have to produce results.
Yeah.
Getting a win at the Burton Open, which to you and me and to the snowboarders, oh wow, what's his name? Tony Smith won Burton Open, or whatever is the hot competition now, because all the different competitions have all sort of died off as well. It's all gone. We're on a 4-year cycle. Everyone needs to know what they're doing 4 years out. The change and upgrading of competitions to reflect what's current in the sport seems to have gone, or it's very hard to change. Like what Red Bull are doing seems to be a great way of trying to do that. But Red Bull is still a tier down from the Olympics, whereas really all those Red Bull competitions, they're what snowboarding is. But then maybe the public sees it differently now, but I sort of stay out of it a little bit, because my view is nuanced and it's old school. I don't think it's current. I don't think it's relevant particularly.
Okay, that's interesting that you can actually reflect on that, on your sort of position on it. I think that's quite interesting. So what's doing it in snowboarding? I mean, it's the start of summer down there for you. Do you get all frothy come the autumn and think, oh man, like, are you still going riding, or have you traded in for skis? What's happening?
I've never skied in my life. No, I've never skied. No,
Good.
This year is the first year I haven't been snowboarding.
What? Why not?
Yeah, because I went to Europe this year and I got back in middle of September, which is nearly the end of our season, and it was really hot, and I couldn't be bothered going for a number of reasons. Now, there's 2 resorts here. There's Cadrona and Treble Cone. I've been going to them for 24 years. I literally know every turn, every move, like the back of my hand, and I'm sort of bored. I'm bored of it. I'm bored of going to those places. Added to that, the resorts get so full. Cadrona has to shut the gates at the bottom because there's 5,000 people up there. You have to drive up the hill. They changed the rules such that they dumb down drivers. So even if you've got snow tires and 4-wheel drive, oh sorry sir, you've got to put your snow chains on. I don't need snow chains. I've got a 4-wheel drive with snow tires on. Oh well, then you can't come up. And then when you get up there, you've got to walk a mile. I've just got sort of sick of snowboarding here in New Zealand, and I could travel to some of the other resorts, but I sort of haven't.
No.
So I'm a little bit bored of snowboarding, I would say. I would love to do a season in Europe. When I say a season, I'd love to do 2 weeks in Team Val d'Isère. I'd love it. I would so love to do it.
Can organise,
but it's expensive. I've got to go over there, and it's maybe I will soon. But so this is the first year in 30 years that I haven't been snowboarding. In previous years, I've gone from 20 days a year, 10 days a year. I've gone down to 5 days a year. Stop buying the season pass, just get a 3-day pass, and I've slowed down bit by bit, but I haven't stopped. Okay, what I do now is I do a lot of mountain biking,
Yep.
a lot.
Right.
So I race downhill, enduro, just events as I can do. Done 5 events this year. I do a lot of swimming, which seems crazy. Go from snowboarding and skateboarding.
Is that some sort of cold water swimming thing, or?
Oh no, I
Pool?
just got into triathlon. I got into triathlon, done quite a few triathlons, done Ironman and half Ironman, and I've got my own swim event with my friend Jamie. It's called the Ruby Swim, and it swims around an island here in Lake Wanaka, and we've got 6 swim lengths, like 600 meters, 1.2k, 2.5k, 3.8k. 5k and 10k swims. And we have 500 people come along. It's quite a big deal. So I'm still running events. I know.
Still got your clipboard.
I know. Honestly, after every single Ruby, it happens at the end of January, which is our middle of summer.
Yeah.
After the Ruby's over, I say to Jamie, right, fuck that. I'm not doing this again. That was too hard. I'm not doing that again. And I've been doing it for 10 years now. So still doing it. And then from that, I've got my own. I've made a wetsuit brand. So I make wetsuits. Yeah. So I've designed a wetsuit for fresh water.
Yeah.
And they're called Ruby Fresh, Ruby Island Fresh Water. Just call them Ruby Fresh wetsuits. So I've made 2 batches of two production runs. I'm on my 3rd production run at the moment at the factory. 600 wetsuits I'm making. And I'm hoping to launch into the UK this coming summer.
Nice.
So
if you have to come over to help with that along, you'll have to come and visit.
Yeah, well, I will do. Yeah, for sure.
So I've realised that I've taken you for quite a long time.
No, I don't mind. I mean, we're never going to get me in an hour. We need
no.
hours.
Well, there's probably maybe we have to do a repeat one. Can you, if you had to sort of sum up snowboarding and what it means to you, can you do that?
It's hard. I have always felt very lucky and honoured to happen to have been in the right place at the right time, to have been able to experience all the friends and situations that I've made and done. I really feel really, really, really lucky to have been at the start of snowboarding just at the right place, but also to have been, well, one of the creators of snowboarding for the UK.
Yeah.
I do understand. I did have that role. I suppose I've got a strongish personality, and I just got things done the best way I could think of. So I have enjoyed that. But there's little things like, I mean, if it wasn't for snowboarding, I wouldn't have met the wife at the time, and I wouldn't have had my kids, and I wouldn't be living in New Zealand. So those are really important to me. So, there's all of that.
And if you could say, for instance, you were talking to someone, well, you're talking to me, someone like me, who maybe it's dropped down the list of priorities, but is now trying to move it back up their list of priorities, how would you motivate someone who misses it and needs to get and sort of wants to get back into it?
Oh, yeah, I would. I could talk about myself. If you've lost your mojo a bit, maybe you just need to try a bit harder and just go and carve some turns. I think a change of environment would fix me. But currently, I can't see a change of environment. How would I get someone else to go? I don't know, Chris. There's so much to do now. It's snowboarding back then was the next big thing. It was the thing. If you were on the in, you wanted to do something that was the skateboarding when skateboarding came around. I was right there. I had to go skateboarding because everyone's talking about it, 1975 onwards. And then when snowboarding came around, as an early adopter, I had to go snowboarding. So people just need to go and experience the snowboard, see where it takes them, literally around the world or within themselves, and just enjoy it for what it is.
So there we are, an hour and a half in the company of a man that is Eddie Spearing. As I said before, a man that's just been so influential in a small scene, from driving around shops to sell advertising in the magazine to deliver magazines. I think that's quite a unique position because in America it'd be too big to do that. You can't see the editors of Transworld Snowboard magazine driving round to shops to deliver their magazines and to chat to them and to find out what was important to them. And I'd guess that is probably still true for a lot of countries, whereas in the British scene, that's kind of the country is small enough in a sense to make that happen. And that is what I feel built such a cohesive scene. In Stuart Duncan's episode, he mentioned about Jeremy Sladen, the main guy at the Snowboard Asylum. I think he worked for Sims at the time, driving round to shops and to sell boards. Like it was the time on the road, and it was the time face to face with people that I think was really important, and that helped create such a cohesive scene where kind of everyone came together because of these commonalities. And I don't know that that's necessarily true in every other country. I guess it's the amount of shops that there were and the amount of dry slopes that encourage people to do it. And as Eddie said, encouraging, making a structure for people to learn. It's not just people finding it on their own and, maybe becoming pro riders and all that sort of stuff. It's the people on the ground that became instructors and encouraged other people into the sport that I think really made it what it was. And that's maybe a side of things that is often overlooked. And so shout out to everyone who has got one of those hand-signed BSA dry slope instructor certificates with Eddie's signature on it. So I hope you enjoyed that. It was a bit of a long one. We went over time. As we talked about at the end, we could have gone so many more places. So maybe there's a revisit if time allows. I think we'll probably get Eddie back on. Maybe if he comes over here. If he comes to visit the UK at any point. And obviously we also talked about a kind of old Shred Dogs kind of trip somewhere. And I know that a few people are heading out to the Dragon Lodge in Teen. Shout out to the Dragon Lodge. There's also the TSA Shred Weeks. All these things are good to get involved in or go and visit. Go and spend time at holiday companies that are run by snowboarders for snowboarders. I can say that from experience, having run a snowboarding holiday company myself. It really does make a difference. If you want to know more about the snowboard scene and you want to get into it, then you're going to find no more supportive an environment than staying somewhere that is run by snowboarders for snowboarders, because they're going to know what you need. They're going to know what your day looks like. They're going to know all the little bits that are going to make your experience a bit better and not favouring anyone over anyone else. But there are some people out there doing a good job, and so go and find out about them. So what else? I've just chucked some more videos up on our YouTube channel. Thank you, Snowboarding. Some of the lockdown projects videos are up there. I didn't ask Tim and Gent, but I'm sure it's fine. So they're up there. The song at the start of the episode this week is the Cadillac Tramps' Don't Go, which is from the Full Line Films video Riders on the Storm. And that is now on the Shredflix playlist on the YouTube channel as well. So you can go and check that out. The Instagram keeps growing. People are taking an interest in that. Stuart Brass has just followed us. Big shout out to you, Stuart. And we posted a picture up on Christmas Day of Adrian Corrigal wearing the exact same outfit that he was wearing on issue 1 of Snowboard UK, which was a really fun thing. I went to Adrian's house a couple of weeks ago. He said he'd found a load of stuff at his mum's house as he was moving her out, and he had the same outfit. So we got him dressed up in that, and I posted a picture on our Instagram. So if you want to find that, go and head to Thank You Snowboarding podcast on Instagram. The music at the top of the show this week is the Cadillac Tramps song called Don't Go, and that is from the movie Riders on the Storm by Full Line Films. A brilliant film, and that song comes from the section where I think Terrier and Todd Richards and Jay Nelson possibly head to Chile for a bit of summer snowboarding, except that it's winter down there. And yeah, it's just a really good section that will make you definitely want to go snowboarding, so go and check that out. That's at the top of the Shredflix playlist on our YouTube channel. Also on our YouTube channel, I've just put up some of the Lockdown Project movies, Proper, Terminal Ferocity, Badass Big Airs and Show-Offs. That's to kind of follow on from The Invasion and the sequel, which we posted a few weeks ago now. I kind of see all those movies as a sort of lineage. They definitely lead from one to the other, and ending in Terminal Ferocity, which was a kind of fake documentary behind the scenes thing of one of their movies. So it was kind of taking the piss out of themselves, really. And I really think it was Tim and Gen's sort of finest work. I know they've gone on to do other things, which I'm sure is great. But in terms of their sort of snowboarding work, I would say that Terminal Ferocity really did it for me. It had the humour that me and Eddie talked about that seemed to run through British snowboarding. They're not taking it too seriously. And, you know, just being able to take the piss out of yourself, which I think is probably healthy in most situations. So, yeah, that's all up on our YouTube channel now. We're just trying to put stuff up there as we find it most of the time. If you've got anything that you want to suggest to us, then please do get in touch via email. It's thankyouSnowboarding@gmail.com. If you've got anything you want to share with the community, any stories, any photos that you want us to put up on the Instagram, then please do. Please do. We're a sort of an open forum for your input. And as probably a British snowboarder, you are part of this too. So I'd personally love to hear your stories, and people have been messaging in and talking about their experiences, and I love it. And if you want something read out on here, then yeah, just send me an email. thankyouSnowboarding@gmail.com. Be great to hear from you. Anything else to talk about? Not really. If you are enjoying this podcast, please do find a way to give us a like, subscribe, all that business, 5-star reviews, leave a comment, leave a review. Certainly you can do it on Apple Podcasts. I don't know about Spotify, but yeah, if you could do that, it's much appreciated. Obviously, if we get more reviews, it gets spread around wider. Obviously, if you've got snowboarding friends you think might be interested, please share it with them. Please share it around on socials. It all helps when it comes to the longevity and the breadth of people we can cover. Obviously, the more listeners, then the longer the run of this podcast can carry on. So, yeah, please do. And, yeah, it just left for me to say Happy New Year. I hope the start of 24 treats you well. We will be back next Thursday when we all know what day of the week it is again. Very much look forward to that. And, yeah, for now, thank you, snowboarding. Peace out.